Okay, so this is going to be a review on the Jeep JK with the Dana 30 front differential. There is a lot of misconceptions on the Dana 30 and what it's capable of and what it's not capable of. There's a lot of people out there saying they're made of glass, they're not going to last, they're going to blow up, it's inevitable, it's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when. And that might be true. But that doesn't mean that when is going to be tomorrow. There could be many years down the road. For instance, this Jeep JK we've had in June, which it's about to be May, right under 2 years. And we have 38s on it right now. We've had these 38s on it for over a year. Before these 38s, we put 37s on it right whenever we bought it, and we had a stock Dana 30. The only thing we did to the Dana 30 was put 456 gears in there. The reason why we put 456 gears in there was because originally we were going to actually run 35s. But whenever we got it, everything was still back ordered because of COVID. So we went ahead and said, screw it. Let's go to 37s. I'm going to talk about the gears real quick. So people ask me in the comments sometimes, what about the gearing? What do you think about the gearing? So going from a 37 with 456 gears to 38s with 456 gears. When you're driving with 456 gears, you have a longer range in first, second, and third before you have to shift, which is great whenever you have to drive in the city. When you get on the highway, you can go 70, 75. But the problem is if you're driving into the wind or if you're driving into the hills, you're going to have to downshift quite a bit into fifth. In some spots, you're not even going to be able to use fifth gear because of the way that the resistance of the wind or the hills are preventing you from getting up to speed. Now, with that being said, driving in the city or driving on the freeway in the flat areas of Houston, it's not a problem. You'll be roughly around 2,300 RPMs driving at 70 miles per hour. That's not a problem at all, and you can hold speed just fine without an issue. It's just until you have heavy, heavy winds or hills that becomes the issue. Now, let's talk about the 513s. Going to the 513 gears, it is a significant difference on the RPM band range. Your first, second, and third gear, it's almost like you're in a granny gear. You'll hit it, wah, shift, shift, real quick. And then once you hit about third, fourth gear, you have a longer band on your RPMs because your transmission. So you can drive a little bit longer in gear before you have to shift. Now, this is for a 6-speed manual transmission, not for an automatic. I can't speak for automatics. Now, as far as it goes for the hills, there we don't have to downshift on the hills. If we're in sixth gear and we're going around 50 miles per hour, we can stay in sixth gear. When we're driving into the wind, we can stay in sixth gear. It's a non-issue. The only downside is when you're going 70 miles per hour, you're going to be sitting around 2,900 RPMs. So your RPMs are going to be a lot higher. As far as it goes for gas mileage, with the 456 gear ratio, we were getting roughly around 15 miles per gallon, 16 all around. Doesn't matter city, highway, all around about 15, 16. When we went to the 513s, we're now getting roughly around between 13 to 14 miles to the gallon, and that's all spectrums of driving and stuff like that. So I can't really say, oh, the city versus highway, because we do a mixture of all. But even going out of town, the best we get is maybe 14, 14 and a half of the 513 gears. With the 456 gear ratio, there's a lot to be desired when it comes to rock crawling and off-roading because the torque just isn't there on the low end. You have to dump the clutch a little bit or rev it up or get your RPMs up in order to be able to have a very good, successful off-road traction to be able to get up those steep embankments when you're climbing rocks. With the 513s, you can feather off the clutch and barely give it gas and it just wants to grab and go, grow and crawl. So there's a huge difference when it comes to off-roading on the 456 to 513s. We did a lot of off-roading on the 456 gears, but they never held us back or stopped us from any obstacle or terrain. We just had to give it a little bit extra on the throttle to get the same performance with the 513s. That's just less strain on the overall drivetrain with the 513 gears. Okay, now with that all being said, with the gear ratios, talking about the gears, let's go ahead and talk about the actual differential itself now. On the 513 gears, it's a significant difference from the 456. The 513 gears and the 456 gear ratio is all we have done besides heavy duty ball joints to the front end. Everything is completely stock. There is no upgraded nothing. No chromoly axle shafts, no lockers, no truss, no gussets, no nothing. Straight, just axle tubing. We put a dual steering stabilizer on there, heavy duty ball joints, and 513 gearing. We have had no issue off-roading. We've off-roaded all through Texas and Arkansas. And soon we're going to be going to Missouri. and we're going to be hitting some trails in Missouri. And if it doesn't break, I'm going to be putting that into another video about how it went through another actual off-road adventure in 2 different states. This is a daily driver. It's also a weekend rig. We do a lot of play and we do a lot of daily driving in it. The worst thing that's happened to the front end was we had to replace the CV boot on the front drive shaft. But again, that's not even related to the actual differential itself. I've pulled it apart and I've checked the axle shafts, and they're in really great condition for being 13 years old and the stocked OEM axle shafts. The ring and pinion is actually from Rough Country. We did these back in November because the rear differential in the Dana 44 actually broke. And we broke 5 teeth off that pinion on the Dana 44, while the Dana 30 has still been rocking strong. People talk about, well, is the axle tubing strong enough? Well, the Dana 30 axle tubing is the exact same axle tubing as the Dana 44. The only thing that changes is the carrier gets bigger and the ring and pinion gets bigger. So the axle tubing is just as strong in the Dana 30 as it is in the Dana 44. If you want to put Gus on your C's, you want to truss it, you want to sleeve it, that's your priority, your vehicle. Having a peace of mind helps you sleep at night. By all means, it's a fun project to do. Do it, upgrade it, and beef it up and make it stronger if that's what you see fit to do. But my biggest question is, how much abuse can this Dana 30 actually take before it breaks? Because we know it's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when. We know eventually we're going to break an axle shaft, or we're going to break a ring or a pinion, or we're going to break the axle housing itself. Eventually, something's going to happen. We just want to figure out how long it's going to take to find out what's going to happen and how bad is it when it happens. Is it as simple as replacing an axle shaft, or did the ring and pinion explode and grenade and break the actual carrier for the differential itself? So this is a little experiment that we've been doing for almost 2 years now to see what this Dana 30 can handle before we have to actually replace it and go to a Dana 44 or a Dana 60, whatever we see fit when the time comes. But until that day comes, we're going to continue to rock out this Dana 30 and put it through all kinds of abuse and just see what it can handle. Eventually, we might go with an auto locker in the front, and we might put chromoly axle shafts on it just to see what the ring and pinion can handle before it actually breaks. Or we might just keep it, and maybe something like the axle shaft will break, and then we'll get to the point where we actually upgrade the axle shafts and then put a locker in there and then see how much abuse that ring and pinion takes before it breaks. And then once we replace that again, we might see how much that takes before the actual tubing snaps. Who knows? We may never even get to that point where we have to replace stuff like that and we have to do things like that. It might just be forever. When is it going to break? And until that day comes, we're going to continue to rock it out and have fun with it. So if this type of stuff interests you and you want to see how much abuse this takes, and you don't have to put your rig through it, you don't have to take your rig off-roading, and you don't have to put upgrades into yours, and you don't have to stress like, can my differential handle that? How much can mine handle? Just keep watching our channel and you'll see when this thing finally lets us down. Because when it lets us down, I'm going to post about it and I'm going to tear it apart and I'm going to see where it went wrong and how bad it went wrong. And I want to keep doing update videos on this regularly. About every 6 months, I'm going to try to do an update video unless something breaks. If something breaks, then it's going to be going up sooner than 6 months. Because just like you guys, I like to see how long things last going the cheapest route without actually having to spend money on upgraded parts. And if you could do it on my dollar and you don't have to spend $1 of yours to figure it out, why not just watch and see how long it takes? Because these are 38s. And we have been playing around with the idea going up to 40s. So if we feel confident enough, we might even bump up to 40s, because this 3.5-inch lift sometimes just doesn't do the job, and we itch for 5.5. We go with 5.5, you might have to go with the 40. So, but that's it for the video, guys. Thanks for watching. Stay tuned for further updates to see how long this 30 lasts us.